Hey guys, it's Ashley, and it is the end of March. If you count graphic novels and comics, I read about 12 books this month. Let's talk about them. Surprisingly, a good number of these that I read this month were on ebook, which I feel like doesn't normally happen for me. I'm typically like a very physical book person, but this month, I don't know, I was just feeling something because a lot of them were in ebooks. So I kicked off March with a romance, and I read Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, which is the second book in the Brown Sisters trilogy of adult romances, and it was just as wonderful as I thought it was going to be. If you were unaware, based on my previous videos where I talk about these books constantly, Talia Hibbert created a adult romance trilogy following 3 sisters, and each book has a love story with one of the sisters in it. I feel like that's kind of self-explanatory, but I feel like I need to explain at the same time. So this one is about Danny Brown, who is the middle child, I think, and she's very academically oriented. She's very, very smart, but she's sworn off romance. She hates romance. She doesn't want to get into the feelings part of a relationship at all. She just wants it to be purely physical. And then you have Zaf, who's a hopeless romantic and a former rugby star player, and he's got this like nonprofit he's trying to start up, but he doesn't really believe in himself, and then they come together and they do a fake dating thing, and then they have real feelings for one another. It's great. I'm here for it. I love it. Also, Talia Hibbert is just so freaking funny. Like, I can't even explain. I start reading these books and I just start cackling. They're so good. Then, based on your suggestions, I downloaded Webtoon and read Heartstopper Volume 3, which I cannot get as a physical copy unless I want to order it from the UK. I just don't feel like doing that right now. So I just read it online. This one was so cute, but I will say it does get a little dark at times. This one focuses in on a lot of things revolving around mental health issues, specifically trigger warnings for eating disorders. This story is so heartwarming and happy and makes you smile, but I'm really happy with the way that this third one went, like the direction that it went in. I think about it and I smile, but then I also understand the struggles that these characters are going through, because they are like real life struggles. It's not just like a, you know, a happy-go-lucky romance. Like, there are problems in these people's lives that they need to fix and to, you know, work with, and I really appreciate Alice Oseman for like adding that very serious tone into it. Real life is not happy-go-lucky and, you know, all smiles. Like, stuff happens. So I'm really happy with the direction that it went in. If you've seen my reading vlog where I read like 5 romance books in one weekend for Valentine's Day, you'll know that I fell in love with Heartstopper. And it hasn't stopped. My heart hasn't stopped liking it, despite the name of the book. I don't know where I was trying to go with that, but it didn't hit the landing that I wanted. Anyway, piggybacking off of that with the book that has nothing to do with it, the next story that I read was Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger, which is book 1 in this absurdly long trilogy. No, trilogy. Why do I keep calling it a trilogy? Book number 1 in this absurdly long series. I did that in my vlog too. I called this a trilogy, even though I know there are like 8.5, 9 books. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like I just said, I did make a reading vlog for this, so if you want to know more spoilery thoughts on it, even though I do get apparently a detail wrong, I think I mixed up who somebody's wife was versus who somebody's daughter was. That's a weird mix-up to make, but I promise you, if you like know the story and like know what I messed up in my vlog, it makes more sense. But anyway, Keeper of the Lost Cities, it's a middle grade series that I know a lot of people love, and it follows a main character named Sophie. She is either 11 or 12 when the story starts, and she's a telepath, and so she's been able to read minds since she was 5. She's also this like child prodigy, so she's always felt out of place in life. Yeah, she's struggling. She's struggling, man, you know? And so one day her school is on a field trip to a museum, and she runs into Fitz, who is a boy who, you know, kind of discovers that she can also read minds, and he like whisks her off to this, you know, new world that she didn't know existed, and apparently she belongs in because, surprise, she's an elf. There's a world of elves, and they can do lots of fun things. Beyond just like that premise, the story is really about Sophie like finding a place that she feels like she belongs, finding a home, and also discovering like what the hell is actually going on with her history that she has no idea. how she even came to be, so that's fun. But what I love the most about this story, or at least about the first book, because I'm actually in the middle of the second book right now, but what I love the most is that it's like a magic school book. I love magic school books, and I forgot how much I loved them until I started reading this again, even though, you know, Nevermore's a magic school book, which I think is also why I really love it. It's just a really fun story, and although it is pretty cliche at times, you do have, like, you know, the chosen one trope and the, oh, she's not like other girls trope, that kind of thing. If you can get past it and just understand that it's like a middle grade that was written in 2012, and I'm sure, as I've heard a lot of other people say, the books get better as they go along, I'm just here for the ride. So we'll see what happens. Crossing my fingers it gets good, but I'm already like about 200 pages into book 2 and it's pretty good. So I'm happy. Now, as I'm sure none of you are aware, I cannot be held responsible for what my brain decides it wants to read at 1 in the morning. You know, recently I haven't been going to bed very early, I've been staying up pretty late, and I just start picking up the weirdest, most random books to read. I'm not gonna say weird, because they're not weird books, but like, I just like randomly get these like urges to read certain things, and so I go online and I find them and I read them, and it's just been a thing recently, right? So this month my random excursion in the world of books was the Fence comics. In one night I read Fence volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4. I did that! No, in all seriousness, I've actually had them saved on Hoopla, which is a digital like library app where you can rent out books. Hoopla has specifically like a bunch of comics and graphic novels, so I recognized the covers from when I first downloaded the app, and I saved them thinking in the future I would want to read them. And so one night, again at 1 a.m., I can't be responsible for this, I was like, I kind of want to read another comic or like a graphic novel or something. You know, I want something like easy, fun, like easily digestible, whatever. And like, yeah, I could have picked up the Steel Prince comics that I still haven't finished, but did I think about that? No. Instead, I went onto Hoopla and I started reading Fence, and I became addicted to it, and now I need to know what is going to happen. But I can't, because we stop at volume 4. Before I get into any more of my like annoyances with the fact that I have to wait for more content, let me get into what this is about. So Fence is a comic series that might not even be comics anymore, which I'll get into later. It's a comic series revolving around fencing, as you could probably guess by the title. So essentially we follow this character named Nick. What's his name? Why can I not remember the simplest of things? So he's the secret son of this fencing prodigy, and he decides he wants to live up to his father's name or whatever and fence. And so he tries to get good at fencing, and he goes into this match and it doesn't work and blah blah blah. And so then he gets into this boarding school and he becomes a fencer. That's the whole series is just following this boarding school where there's this fencing team, and these people really like fencing. And apparently there's this whole world of fencing that I just didn't know existed. So the more you know. But the best thing about this series is like the slow burn romance. It's so good. The main tension in the story is the number 2 fencing prodigy in the nation or the world or something. I don't really know what the parameters are for that, but Seiji, he is like really good, but also like really intimidating and like really like not mean, but just like very driven. Is that the word I'm looking for? And so there's this like tension between him and Nick, and it's like you can feel it beginning to blossom into something that you finally want, and then the book ends and there's no more. So that's what I'm mad at. But then also there's like other romantic tensions happening, and everything is just like so slow burned. The things that are happening in the story, they feel like they're happening really fast, but in reality the things that you want to happen are actually happening slowly, and it's really annoying. So initially I said something about how these are not going to be comics anymore. I am honestly not sure what's happening with the series. So I asked on Instagram for information about this because I know that I'm very new to this and I know nothing about it, and I know that a lot of people have really loved this comic series for a while. So I thought maybe you guys would have some information. I got a couple of different like sources of information, and some people have said that they're not going to be comics anymore. Apparently they're being written as novels or books. I also read online somewhere that they're not being released as like single issue comics and then bound into volumes. They're apparently being graphic novels now. I'm just like really confused as to exactly what's happening. I should probably do more research, or like, I don't know, look on the author website or something. So I'll probably do that after I finish this video, but after Seiji voluntarily touched Nicholas's shoulder at the end of the last book, I started crying, so I need more. Okay, so we're gonna stop going on about that now because I think I've turned into a crazy person, and we're gonna get into the next book that I read this month, which is honestly one of my favorite books that I've read this year so far. It like tops the list of everything that I've read so far this year. It was everything to me. And that book, if you have not guessed yet, based on the last video that I just uploaded, which should have been my urban fantasy recommendations, that book is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, which should not come as any surprise to anybody because I feel like everybody and their mother who reads this book loves this book. It's just so good. It made me cry. It made me literally cry happy tears. It was so good. So if you were not aware of what this book is about, let me share with you. We follow this middle-aged guy named Linus, and he's just kind of stuck in a rut in his life at his job. He works for the department in charge of magical youth, and he is a caseworker who goes to different orphanages that house these magical children, and he decides whether they're being treated properly or whether the orphanage should shut down. So one day, his higher-ups in extremely upper management decide to give him this very high profile case, and he is sent to this island that nobody really goes to this orphanage that nobody has heard of, which house some of the most dangerous magical children that could be thought to one day end the world, and he is sent there for a month in order to determine whether the orphanage is good or whether it should be shut down. But in this month of time he spends at the house in the Cerulean Sea, he grows closer to these children, and he grows closer to their caretaker Arthur, and things happen, and it's wonderful, and it makes me want to cry. I am holding the dust jacket because my sister was in the middle of reading this book, and it's been like 2 weeks now, and I don't think she's finished it. So my happiness in finally getting her to read a book I recommended was short-lived, but it's fine. I'll deal with it. This book is just as heartwarming and happy and beautiful as everybody has made it out to be. It is a story about found family, so if you love stories about found family, I would highly, highly, highly recommend this one. In addition, it has a layer about, you know, love coming in all forms, loving people no matter who and what they are, what they were raised to be, what I just like, oh my god, I can't get over how wonderful this book was. My love for this story knows no bounds. It's incredible, and oh my god. For those of you who have read this story, my favorite, like, characters among the children are probably either Lucy or Chauncey. I also love Talia, and I love Theodore, and literally all of them. Like, I love them all, but my favorites are probably Lucy and Chauncey. Lucy because, for those of you who haven't read the book, he's a 6-year-old boy. He's missing both of his front teeth, and he's also the Antichrist. And then Chauncey is this, like, jellyfish sort of hybrid, like, alien-looking creature, I would say. But his one singular goal in life is to be a bellhop. And he is adorable! But anyway, yeah, it's just the most quirky, adorable book that I've read in so long, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm so here for it. So the next book that I read this month was Act Your Age Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, which is the newest release in the Brown Sisters trilogy. It finishes out the series, and I guess I should have brought it up when I talked about Take a Hint, Danny Brown, but oh well, here we are now. This one was honestly probably my favorite out of all of them. One of the main reasons for that is because although Get a Life Chloe Brown and Act Your Age Eve Brown are both enemies to lovers romances, I feel like this one does such a better job of it because you actually get to see the sort of enemies relationship begin, right? Rather than in Chloe Brown, when it time jumped to a couple weeks later when she had moved out of her parents' house and she already had a first meeting with Red and they already disliked each other, you know? So you were kind of being introduced to something that had already happened, whereas in this story you literally get to see it happen in real time, and it's amazing. All of these books are really funny, you know, and in all of them I have laughed literally out loud before, but this one I was just like, I was cackling in the beginning of this story. I don't know why, I don't know how, I just absolutely fell in love with this from the first few pages, so I don't know what that says, but this is my favorite. Eve Brown is the youngest Brown sister. She is kind of like a lost soul, I would say. She's kind of tried and failed at pretty much everything that she's done, and she, you know, always bounces around between like career choices and opportunities and things like that. And as soon as something gets hard, she kind of like ducks out and doesn't want to deal with it because she doesn't want to fail. So her parents kind of give her an ultimatum, but she gets cut off from her parents, right? And so she has to find a real job. So she ends up going off on this like 2-hour road trip for no reason to, you know, deal with her feelings. And she ends up in this tiny town where she finds this B&B that's hiring a chef. And she goes into interview for it for no reason. And so there she meets Jacob, who is the love interest in this story, who owns the B&B. And he is autistic, and he has a very certain person that he's looking for this job, and Eve is everything but that. And so their sort of like enemies relationship, like I said, starts off pretty immediately as soon as they meet each other. You know, Jacob like really dislikes her upon first like, you know, meeting, and she doesn't like how cold Jacob is initially, and so it's like, it's so good. Yeah, my favorite. I'm gonna stop talking now. So we're coming down to the last 3 books of the month. The first one I want to talk about is my reread of, wait for it, I forgot to get the book out, The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I finally reread this book after talking about it for months and months and months, and it was just as good as I remembered. I love this story so much. I did film more, again, spoilery thoughts and, you know, my reactions and whatnot in my reading vlog, where I also read Keeper of the Lost Cities. So if you want to know more about that, I'll leave it linked down below. But in summary, the story is just really, really, really good. It's a great urban fantasy. It has a bit of historical fiction mixed in. It's a heist book. It's got almost like an enemies to lovers romance. It's so good. Really quickly, I'll give my very, very, very quick synopsis. This story is about a world about people with magic and powers, and there's this thing called the Brink that is basically trapping them all in New York, right? Just go with it. So there's a character named Esta in real time, and she has to time travel back to 1902 in New York to get on this crew that is going to perform this heist, that is going to steal this book that can potentially help them restore order and bring down the Brink in the future. So it's like a time travel book, a heist book. Everything is so good in this story. There's so many things going on, and I'm so here for it. And now I just need to reread The Devil's Thief, which is book 2, to prepare for The Serpent's Curse, which I know now does not come out until about April 13th, I think, sometime in April. I kept saying that it was in March, but it's not. So many people have corrected me at this point. It would be sad if I didn't remember. So sometime in April, the 3rd book is coming out, and I'm so excited. So finally, we're coming down to the last 2 books in this month that I read, and they kind of took me by surprise because I was not expecting to read them. Also, this is kind of funny. So back in December when I was filming my Bookmas videos and I made my 2021 resolutions and like reading plans video, I said that I wanted to finish the series that I was in the middle of. That was one of my main goals this year, was to finish the book series that I had started and then never got through, right? In this month alone, I've managed to start 3 different series. So that's fun. But back on track to this series. So I had no plans in reading this month, but I had seen a lot about this series over the years, and especially on Instagram recently. I don't know why, but it felt like everybody was posting about it, and I was like, okay, this must be a sign. I should probably pick this up at some point. So I put it on hold at my library, and this month I got the notification that it was ready. And so I was like, I'm kind of in the middle of books, like why don't I just pick it up and see what happens? So the series that I'm talking about is, I think it's called like the Cursebreaker series. I don't really know the series name, but the first book is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I think that's the name of the book. It'll be right here if I'm wrong. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I have seen this around so much, and I picked it up on a whim, and I did really like it, I think. I gave it a solid like 4 stars. The main reason that I enjoyed it was probably because of the pacing. It was pretty fast paced, and it made me want to keep reading to know like what was the next thing that was going to happen, because I knew that it was going to come pretty quickly. And I did like the characters. The story follows Harper, who is a girl in Washington, D.C., and she's living with her brother, and her family has come on some hard times. Her mother's dying of cancer, and her father skipped out on them after getting them heavily in debt to these really bad people. And Harper also also is living with cerebral palsy. So there's a lot of different things happening with this family, and one night Harper sees this guy basically almost kidnap this woman, or this girl. So she runs after him and attacks him, and it turns out that he's Gray and he is from this magical world of Emberfall, and as she attacks him, he transports them back to Emberfall, and now she's missing. So she ends up in this world and comes to find out that the prince has been cursed, and they are reliving the same season over and over and over again until he can find somebody to fall in love with him, aka the Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, I really liked Harper. I liked how determined she was. Sometimes I felt like she was a bit impulsive, but I felt like she had good intentions, and I really liked how she didn't let her cerebral palsy define her or her life. It was just something she was living with. It was part of who she was. My favorite character was Gray. He is the commander of the Royal Guard, and he was the last guard left, essentially, after the monster, as part of the curse, basically killed everybody else. He's very stoic in the first book, and then he slowly sort of warms up, and you feel like there's something happening between him and Harper. But the third main character that you follow is Ren. Ren's the prince. He's the one who's been cursed. He's the one who actually turns into the beast at the end of every season, though nobody really knows that it's him other than Gray. And he has to live with the guilt of basically slaughtering his whole family as a beast, and not being able to protect his people while he has been cursed. So there's a lot of different things and dynamics that are going around with this. I really liked the story. I liked the sort of twist on the Beauty and the Beast that Bridget Kemmerer gave the story, rather than just letting it be kind of like your basic usual Beauty and the Beast story. And yeah, I thought it was really good, especially the end. It had a sort of an ending that I was not expecting, so I was really happy with that. And yeah, it was a great start to the series. That's pretty much all I have to say. Now, as soon as I finished it, I wanted to move into book 2, and I found that it was readily available at my library. I didn't even have to wait for it, and I was like, okay, I guess this is a sign that I should just read this immediately. And boy, was I let down. So the second book is called A Vow Heart, A Heart So Fierce and Broken. Is that what it's called? Too many adjectives. Too many adjectives. I can't keep track, but here is the cover. I went into this story not knowing at all what this was going to be about, and I really did not like it. I don't think I've ever given a book 2 stars in my life, other than like when I reread Twilight, which I'm sorry to those people who still love Twilight. I loved it too when I first read it, and then I reread it and was like, oh my God, this is a flaming dumpster fire, so I'm so sorry. But I've never given a book other than that 2 stars, and I had to give this one 2 stars because I just could not. I went into this book not knowing anything about it, came out of it really not liking it, and realizing that I should have stopped reading around the 60% mark when I really wanted to put it down. There was a point in the book where I was like, okay, none of what is going to happen is going to make me change my mind about this book. I really should just stop reading it. And instead I kept going because I kept saying to myself, no, this has to get better. And it just didn't. Let me go ahead and explain a little bit. This story follows specifically Gray and this new character named Liamara. Liamara is the princess, the daughter of this queen of this neighboring country who has been trying to storm and overthrow Emberfall in the wake of the curse being lifted and all this kind of stuff, blah blah blah. They're like ruthless and mean, but Liamara is soft and kind and wants the good for her people and stuff like that, which is like fine, right? Like it's okay. The thing that I didn't like about this story though was that it felt like nothing happened. Gray felt like a different character than in the first book. In the first book, he felt like capable and sure of himself and all that stuff. And like, yeah, there was like sort of like a wrench thrown into his plan, and he realized that like, you know, some things weren't what they used to be, but I don't know. I feel like something fundamental about his character was just different, and I really just didn't like it. And also, I really hated Liamara. I really did not care for her at all. Every chapter that we got of hers, I was like, just not here for it. I just wanted to move on and go to the next scene with Gray. Literally, the only thing pulling me through this story was Gray. And then on top of that, the first chapter that we got was a Harper chapter, which made me feel like we were going to go back and forth between Gray and what he's doing, and then Harper and Ren and what they're doing. We would get to see both sides of the story. But instead, we got one Harper chapter, and then it was like, they just didn't exist throughout the rest of the book, other than like a couple of pop-ups here and there, which did not help this book because Ren and Harper, their characters made completely different and out-of-character choices as well, which I feel like is apparently a common problem people have had with the story when I read other reviews after I finished it. A lot of people have said that the second book feels like a completely different book to the series. It feels like it shouldn't have even followed book one because none of the characters are acting the way that they would normally. They're making very out-of-character actions in the second story, and I can totally see that. Also, I feel like there was a lot more that could have been done and a lot more that could have been shown if they had, you know, swapped perspectives between somebody on Gray's team and, you know, Gray and whatever they're doing, and then also with Harper and Ren, you know? Like, I feel like we could have, like, swapped and seen both sides and been, like, much more open. Also, the end of the book really made me mad because of some things that just didn't make any sense. I'm just gonna put my hand up for a second while I talk about some spoilers. If you haven't read this book and you want to, go ahead and mute for just like 5 seconds. I'm just gonna talk really quickly. If you want to hear what I have to say, keep it on. You know what to do. So at the very end, when Gray is about to storm Emberfall and the Queen of Sill Shallow is like, bring me your sister, Nola Varen, or whatever her name was, and she wants Gray to kill Liamara, she says something in her speech that really confused me. She was kind of like, okay, so we believe that magic is a danger and can kill all of us, and that's why we, you know, made the Mage Smiths go to Emberfall instead. So to prove that Gray is going to turn a new leaf and begin a new era of magic that we can trust, we're gonna get Gray to use its magic to kill someone. It's like so redundant to what you're trying to preach. It doesn't make any sense. And then the second part that really annoyed me, that I was just like, this is so stupid at the end of the book, was Ren in the epilogue making the decision that he did to trust Lilith to help him rid the world of Gray. Like, what? Like, between the guy who stood by your side for 300 years, who you just found out was a brother, who you thought of as a friend for a very long time before you really acknowledged it, right? Between him, working with him, or working with the woman who tortured you for years and put you in the curse to begin with, you're gonna choose her? Even somebody like Ren, who has what has been described in the book as PTSD from the events that happened, who fears magic like he fears nothing else, why would he trust Lilith over Gray? Why would he not say, look, bro, let's work something out? It doesn't make any sense to me. The logic is not there. So yeah, suffice to say, the second book was a bit of a disappointment. I would be interested to read the third one to see if any of these characters can be redeemed, but I have to say, if there's more than like maybe 3 chapters from Liamara, I'm gonna have to give it a no. I don't know what it was, I just didn't like her, I'm sorry. But yeah, I was really hoping that this was going to be like a new favorite series, something that I really enjoyed, and it would have been, and then I read the second book. And so those were all of the books that I read this month. 12 books if you count each of the 4 volumes of Fence as a single book, which I do because I want to. If you guys read anything really, really good this month, definitely let me know in the comments. But other than that, I think that's going to be it for this video. So if you want to follow me on any of my socials, all my handles are in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye!